Kadosh Boker or Masechet Shevuot Daf Kavzayin Amud Aleph 27a1 Mishnah says the Mishnah Nishba levatel et mitzvah. If a person comes and he's nishba to be mevatel a mitzvah, so for example, not to be maniach tefillin, or that he's not going to be matzav elel rishon shel Pesach, velo bitel. Now he was not mevatel the mitzvah. He's going to be patur from a korban shevuah lekayem. Right. So again, because obviously he says, right, he's going to be patur from korban shevuah, but if you remember, it's never going to be chal on a mitzvah. You remember we said only a neder, not a shevuah. Lekayem. Right? Lekayem. What does it mean lekayem velo lekayem? It's going to be patur. Shayav adein sheyachayav. I would have thought he was going to be chayav kedivrei Rabbi Yehuda b'metera, because he actually learned from a kal vachomer that if you were nishba lekayem et mitzvah velo kiyem, you're going to be chayav a korban shevuah. Kal vachomer that he holds that you're going to be patur. Amar Rabbi Yehuda b'metera ma'im reshut she'enu mushba lav me'al Sinai hadei alev chayav. So mitzvah shu mushba lav me'al Sinai eno din sheyachayav. You learn the kal vachomer. If on a dvar reshut you're going to be chayav, kal vachomer then on a dvar mitzvah you should be chayav. Amrulo, they said no. It says why? Im amarta b'shvuat reshut. When do we say the shvuat reshut? Sheken asa b'en lav kehen, right? Tomar b'shvuat mitzvah shelo asa b'en lav kehen. Sheim nishba levatel lo bitel patur. Remember, if a person is going to be nishba levatel et a mitzvah, it's like nothing. A shevuah has to be that there has to be a love like a hen or a hen like a love. Meaning there has to be like the negative and the positive. If it's only a one-way street of a shevuah, it does not work. The law of it. As here, there's only a positive. Lekayem et mitzvah. Zelo levatel et mitzvah. So therefore, if he's going to be mevatel et mitzvah, right? If he's nishba levatel et mitzvah, he's going to be patur. So therefore, even when he's going to be nishba lekayem et mitzvah, he's going to be patur. Why? Because it's not a two-way street. It's only going to be a one-way street. What? Tanu Rabbanan, we learned in the Braita. Yachol, I would have thought to say nishba levatel et mitzvah velo bitel. I would have thought to say if a person is going to be nishba levatel et mitzvah and he was not mevatel, he should be chayav. Tamunomar comes to teach you lehara or lehetiv. Just like hatava is a reshut, so to hara'a is a reshut. Meaning we're learning from the words lahara lehetiv that everything has to be a reshut and not a mitzvah. Because obviously, if it's going to be a mitzvah, it has nothing to do with lehara or lehetiv. Right? Because basically, when you're going to come and say lahara or things like that, it's the pirush is that you're doing shmirah, that you're doing something bad to yourself. It has nothing to do with it. That you're going to be patur. Why? Because that's not hara shel reshut. You have no reshut to do such a thing. So says the Gemara, Yachol nishba lekayem et mitzvah lo kiyem yechayav. Okay, so let's say the other way around. You made a neder shevuah that you're going to be mekayem a mitzvah, and you were not mekayem it. Right? For example, the tefillin. I would have thought that you're going to be chayav. Meaning, each one has to be reshut. That a hara'ah has to be reshut, and the hatava has to be reshut. The hara'ah is that you're going to be mevatel a mitzvah. The hatava is that you're going to be mekayem a mitzvah. So therefore, just like the hara'ah was a reshut, so to the hatava has to be a reshut. So he says, fine. Says the Gemara, Yachol nishpa la'ara la'atzmo velo hera yachol yepatur. So 1 second. What happens if a person comes and he makes a shevuah to hit himself? To hit himself, to do something bad to himself. That's nishba lehara le'atzmo. Now he doesn't do it. I would have thought to say, you're going to be patur from a korban shevuah. Right? So he says, Samulomar, lehara o le'ativ. Ma hatava reshut, afara reshut. Avi nishba lehara le'atzmo, velo hera, shareshut biado. What does that mean? He has the permission to do so, which means that a person can do so. So he says this is called hara'ah shel reshut. So if he's going to be chayav. So he says, okay, but yachol gam ke nishba lehara le'achirim velo hera. What happens if he swears that he's going to punch somebody else out? And then what happens? He doesn't do so. So I would have thought to say he's going to be chayav. Just like a tava is reshut, tavara reshut, otzi nishba lehara le'achirim lo hera, shel reshut biado. There, you don't have the permission to do so. At the end of the day, you have no rights to come and to punch somebody else. So he says, so you shouldn't be a chayav korban then. So minayin lerabot atavat acharim, tamunomar o lehetiv, ve'ezoi hara'at acharim, aket ploni ve'eftzat mocho. I'm going to hit him and I'm going to take out his brains. You understand? This is a good, you see, this is mamash the way that they, yeah. Yeah. We are very mild. He speaks about, we're very mild. Here, זה העיראקים, תסתכל, הבבלים, איך הם מדברים. ket ploni והפצע את מוחו. Yeah, it's fine. וממאי דקראי בדבר הרשות כתיבה. So he comes and he says, yeah, that's what he's saying. That's hara'at acherim, that we said that it's not going to be chal. It's not going to be chal. It's not chal. No, because it's not chal. Because he has no rights. Yeah, that he's not chal. Why? Because at the end of the day, it's not going to be chal, because you have no rights to go and to punch. So he comes and he says, yeah, he comes and he says, "Omimai dikrae bedvar reshut ktive." So he comes and he says, right, Dilma, right, bedvar mitzvah ktive. Maybe bemet it's going to be right. It's written in the dvar mitzvah. What does that mean? He comes and he says, just like hatava is reshut, hafara reshut, so therefore the same thing. Meaning, maybe we're going to come and say that both of them is dvar mitzvah, or le'tiv or le'ara. 1 minute. He's talking about it has to be the bisfatayim. Says the Gemara, lo sal kadaitach. We're not talking about that. Why? He says the ba'inan hatava dunya dara'a. We need the good just like the bad, and the bad just like the good. Dakish, right? Remember, whenever the Torah makes a hekesh, we make a hekesh. Dakish hara'a le'atava. We're making a hekesh hara'a, yeah. We're making a hekesh hara'a to the hatava. Just like hatava is not by bitul mitzvah, so too hara'a is not by bitul mitzvah. Hara gufa is hatavahi, which means that, for example, let's say a person comes and he makes a shevuah that he's not going to eat chametz on Pesach. So he says it can't be because the hara'a itself is something good. Because the shevuah is to be mekayim the mitzvah, that's hatava. So therefore it comes out that means even though he's doing it l'ra'a legufo, but to his nefesh it's good. So therefore, obviously, that can be that. V'akish hatava l'ra'ah, we're doing the other way around as well. Hatava l'ra'ah, just like hara'ah is not an akiyuma mitzvah, so to hatava is not going to be a akiyuma mitzvah. Hatava v'gufa, right, is also going to be a ra'u, which means that it comes out that you cannot explain that hatava is to do with the mitzvah, not to do with the akiyuma mitzvah or bitul mitzvah, and the same thing the other way around, meaning that nothing of hatava or ra'ah could be by a mitzvah. So says the Gemara, if so, you can't find it also by Dvar Reshut. Why? He comes and he says like this. He says, imagine right now Dvar Reshut. I want to come and I want to eat this babka, whatever it is. You understand? So he comes and he says like this. Even in Dvar Reshut, right? He comes and he says, there's going to be sometimes something good and sometimes something bad. So he's going to make a shevuah, he's going to eat it. So he's doing good for himself, right? But really, be'emet, maybe it's not good for the goof. Maybe be'emet it's dangerous. Right, all the preservatives and the sugar and the this and the that, yeah, the margarine and everything. So you also have tzadara. Now we have a question then. So therefore, in anything, you're going to have a good and a bad. So that means even in Dvar Reshut, you're going to have a good and a bad. If you're going to tell me that there's no such thing as good and bad by a mitzvah, you cancel everything out. So he says, Ela, but rather no. He says like this. When it says o, la'ara o le'etiv, O is coming to include hatavat acherim. So therefore, obviously, we're talking about the reshut. So he says, if you're going to tell me that we're talking about dvar mitzvah, hashta haraat acherim itra behatavat acherim ibai. He says, if we're talking about haraat acherim, you're going to tell me that we're talking about hatavat acherim? Obviously, that can be the case. So it says again, okay, fine. He says, yeah, but the word o is coming to be mechalek between lehara or letiv, meaning when you come and you would use the word o. O means this or this. That's lechalek. So what are you talking about then? Because if you say lara le'etiv, like what's a pshat? Obviously. So he says you don't need a pasuk for that. Lechalek lo tzarich ra. He says why? Because we would have never thought that it could be both. Because it can't be both. So the word vav or whatever, that's obviously lechalek. So you don't need that. So he says hani chal Rabbi Yonatan. That's good according to Rabbi Yonatan. But according to Rabbi Yoshia, Michael, what are you going to say? So he says the time we learned in the Braita, Yish asher yikalel et aviv et imo. That's going to be the father and the mother. Aviv velo imo. What happens if the father not the mother, or the mother not the father? Minayin, how do you know? Tamulomar aviv imo kilel. Aviv kilel imo kolel. Right? That means that each one is by itself. That means even though lo kilel shnehem, he's still going to be chayav. Rabbi Yonatan says mashma shlem kechad. It's mashma both of them together, and then it's mashma echad bifnei atzmo. Meaning like this: when it says in the Torah, ish asher yikalel et aviv et imo, that means it's mashma. You have to curse both of them to be chayav mitah. Yeah. But, so then that's the vav. Because it says, Aviv imo kilel, Aviv kilel imo kilel. So it's mashma each one separately. Rabbi Yonatan says, it's mashma both of them together, and then it's mashma each one separately. Kavzanim ubet. Ad shifrot lecha katuv yachdav. So he says, since it's mashma both, for you to consider both together, you have to say the word yachdav. If it doesn't tell you yachdav, it's separately. So says the Gemara, afilu tema, even if you want to tell me now it's going to be Rav Yoshia, the Savala Rabbi Kiva, and he holds like Rabbi Kiva that he's Doresh Ribuya Miyute. So this was the yesterday's daf of being Doresh, or the Doresh Ribuya Miyut. Yeah, so he comes and he says, Iyam Rav Dishvav, you're going to tell me Dvar Reshul Ktiv, so Memayet Dvar Mitzvah, it's going to be Memayet Dvar Mitzvah. And if you're going to tell me Dvar Mitzvah Ktiv, what's it coming to be Memayet? So he says, obviously, you have to come and say that it's going to be Memayet, right? Something which is going to be a mute, which is O, which is Marbeh Atava La'acherim. So we learn from this the deen of a Shevuah Dvar Mitzvah from Ribui Miyot to Ribui, just like Rabbi Akiva. Amar Rabbi Yehuda ben Metera, says Rabbi Yehuda ben Metera, Ma'ima Reshut. So he says like this, if it's going to be Dvar Reshut, Rabbanan, Shapi Kamalel Rabbi Yehuda ben Metera, he says what? Rabbanan, they were right? It doesn't make sense. Why? You don't have a love and a hen. So he says, Rabbi Yehuda ben Metera, Omer Lecha, Atu atavat achirim lava v'gav delete bichlal araat achirim Rabbi Nachmana. He says, what about doing good to your friend, even though it's not written doing bad to your friend, and the Torah still added it in? So to b'kiyu mitzvah, even though there's not going to be a bitul mitzvah, you're not going to have a ribui rachmana. What does that mean? We're only talking about atavat achirim. Atavat achirim means you're doing good to somebody else. We were not talking about haraat achirim. So the Gemara says, if right now the Gemara added in hatavat achirim, doing good to others, so therefore, even though you don't have the lavehen, you do not have davar reshut. Anything which is not a mitzvah is davar reshut. You want to eat this cake, that's davar reshut, it's a mitzvah, right? So he says, so too. Look at Hachanami. So too here we're talking about Q mitzvah. What does it mean Q mitzvah? When we're talking about the Q mitzvah, we're talking about that even though there's no bitul, but a kiyum should be the same thing. Meaning, according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Metera, Rabbi Yehuda ben Metera is going to tell you, listen, you cannot swear to be mevatela mitzvah, but you could swear to be mekayema mitzvah. That yes. So says the Rabbanan. So what do they learn? Well, again, that's according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Metera. He argues on the Chachamim. So the Gemara says, according to the rabbis, what do? They say there, ite belo etiv, hacha ni ite belo ekayem. He says there's a Shevuah that he says, if I'm not going to be etiv lacherim, meaning you have the positive and the negative, I'm going to do you a favor. And I could swear I'm not going to do you a favor. So hatavat acherim v'ra'at acherim. You have the hen ve'alav, positive and the negative. To do with the mekayem mitzvah, I could swear to be mekayem mitzvah, that you could do. But you could not swear to be mevatel mitzvah. It's only one way. So since it's one way, that's why it doesn't work. Because you need the hen ve'lav. Right? That's what we're talking about until now.
Where are we?
Kalkadosh, Mishnah Kav Zayin Amud Bet, 27b, the Mishnah. The Mishnah says as follows, Shevuah shelo ochal kikar zo, and then he says Shevuah shelo ochlena. Shevuah shelo ochlena. So he made 3 Shevuot. He said a Shevuah, he's not going to eat this bread. Right? Then he made another Shevuah and another Shevuah. Va'achala. And then he comes and he eats it. Eno chayav ela achat. He's not going to be chayav, only one. Right? Why? Because we already learned that en Shevuah chalal Shevuah. You remember that? Okay, fine. Next. Zo ish Shevuah bitui shechavim al zedona makot v'shigagata korbano leviodeh. You remember in the previous Mishnayot that we just mentioned this 5 minutes ago. This is a Shevuah bitui that you're going to be chayav al zedona makot. Okay, and shigagata korbano leviodeh. But derech klal, it's always zedona karet, and then shigagata. Right, you're not going to bring. Then shigata, you're going to bring a korban. Here, it's a special deen that here, if you do it b'mezid, you get malkut, like a negative commandment, and korban olev yodet. Shevuat shav, you're going to be chayavim al zedona makot. For shigata, you're going to be patur legamre, meaning you're not going to be chayav of korban. Okay, it says the Gemara. Lama lilmitni shevuah shelo ochal, shevuah shelo ochelena. Why do I have to teach this? What are you talking about? Hakavashmalan comes to teach you. Tamad damar, but he says shelo ochal, and then he says shelo ochelena. Right? Telo mechayev elechad. That's going to be one. Aval amar, but if he said shelo ochlena, aval amar shelo ochal, you are going to be chayav tarte.
Well, it's a piece of chlena, it's a whole thing.
So what does it say here? He says because the lashon of lo ochal is mashma shelo yochal mimenu afilu kezait. Gemara Kav Zayin Amud Bet. Right? He says, right? He says, right? The shelo yochal is mashma afilu kezait. Right? Shelo ochlena is mashma. Then the whole thing. כדרבה לקרבה, דאמר רבא רבא שבוע שלא אוכל כיכר זו, כיוון שאכל ממנו כזית, is going to be חייב, שלא אוכלנה, אינו חייב שלאכל את כולה. Because it's much for the entire thing. Okay, נקודה, next, 2 dots. שבוע שלא אוכלנה ואכלה. אינו חייב אל אחת. מה?
מה הייתה פה?
שבוע שלא אוכלנה ואכלה, you're only going to be חייב 1. התול אמר לי, why do we need this? So he says, כמשמען, חיוב הוא דלקה, there's no חיוב, but שבוע איכה. אם משכחת רבך, because if there is going to be a place to be חל, it is going to be חל. למה יחד? What does it mean? Like רבא. דאמר רבא. רבא says, שאם נשאל הראשונה, עלתה לו שנייה תחתיה. Right? He says, imagine right now, I came and I made 3 Shevuot. He said, שבוע שלא אוכל. Then he said, שלא אוכלנה, שלא אוכלנה. Correct? That was the order, no? Yeah. אוכל, אוכלנה, אוכלנה. Read the Mishnah. אוכל, אוכלנה, אוכלנה. שלא אוכלנה. Again, one more time. אוכל, אוכלנה, אוכלנה. Yeah.
The second Ochlena, he's done already.
Wait. Says the Gemara, why do I need all 3? Says the Gemara, it's not chal. And shua chal al shavua. He says, no. There is no chiyuv. There is no chiyuv. One second. There's no chiyuv. But there is a shavua. What's an afkamina? If I would do hatarat nedarim on the first shavua, on the ochel, right? The shavua. So what's going to happen? I canceled it out. The second one now comes into its place. If I'm going to say that it's not chal at all, so that means I didn't do anything. So if I do a tarat nedarim on the first one, Kaddish, I'm done. He says, no. The Shevuah is still there. There's just no chiyuv. I cannot be mechayev otcha mashu, and I can't do anything to you. But it's still there. What's enough kamina? If I cancel A, it goes into the A. And this one goes into the B. And if I cancel that one, now the question is going to... One second. So he says... So says the Gemara, why don't we bring a proof to this? If a person did 2 nezirot, he says he's a nazir twice. Right? So what happens? He does the first nezirut. Remember, nezirut is minimum 30 days. He separates the korban. And then afterwards, he was nishal al-rishona. Right? He does a tarat nedarim in the first nezirut. So it comes out that he used the second one as the first one. Because since he did a tarat nedarim in the first one, it was canceled out. But now the second one comes instead of the first one. So he did it also. So he did it. So says the Gemara, can you compare both cases? So he says, Hatam nezirut mi'aita dechimane l'rishona ba'element mimna l'shniya b'lo she'ela. He says, 1 second, when you're going to come and mashlim the nezirut rishona, you have to count another 30 days for the second one. So it comes out that the neder that came out from your mouth was also even without she'ela. And it was going to be chal. Hacha, Shevuah shniya mita klal. The Shevuah is nothing. Meaning like this. When a person made 2 Neziruts, what happened? How much does he have to do for Nezirut? 60 days. Meaning he has to do both of them. When a person made 3 Shevuot, what's chal? Nothing. Only the first one. So he doesn't have to do the other 2. Because he already has a Shevuah, it doesn't go into effect. Because he's already has a Shevuah not to eat. So the second 2 do not go into effect at all. By the Nezirut, both of them go into effect. After the first 30 days, he counts it, he has to do another 30 days. So you have to do both. By the Shevuah is not chal, the second 2, because he already has the first Shevuah there. So what are you comparing? Ma kesher? Ma? זה אותו דבר פה גם. Answers the Gemara, I do have a case. You know where? Amar Rava nishba, right? This is not like an answer. This is like another case where you do find it. Nishbal kikar va'achala. What happens if you were nishbal kikar and you ate it? Im shier mimena kezait. If right now you had a kezait left over, v'nishal alea, and then you did hatarat nedarim on your Shevuah, achla kula and nishal alea. But if you ate the entire thing and you didn't ask for it, so now it's going to happen. What does that mean? You went and you said that you're going to have a Shevuah shelo ochal. You went and then what did you do? You made hatarat nedarim. By doing hatarat nedarim, you got rid of the neder. But now you came, the first neder, but now you came and you ate the entire thing. Because you left a kazait left. Because you always have to have a minimum of kazait. Right? But if it's less than a kazait, it's not called achila. So you have to have a kazait. Right? The only thing is you're finishing off the entire bread. You're not going to eat. Okay. Remember that eating is minimum of kazait. But now you ate the entire left, but you left a kazait. So it's still chal another kazait. Now you do hatarat nedarim in the first Neder, the first Shevuah. What? No, you ate the entire thing. You ate the entire thing. You didn't respect the kazait, right? It doesn't matter. You ate more than kazait. It doesn't matter how much, right? So now what happens? What happens is that now you ate the rest of it. Now you did not do atarat nedarim on the rest of it. So now on the second Shevuah, the fact that you ate a kazait and you didn't do atarat nedarim the second Shevuah goes instead of the first Shevuah. Now you're going to be chayav.
He's trying to bring it back like the Nazir.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to bring it back like the Nazir. So Amaleh Ravacha Bered Ravashi, Hechidami, what's the case? If you said Shelo Ochal, right? Mikazait Kama Avdel Yisura. He said you did the Yisura on the first Kazait. And if you said Shelo Achalena, so what do I care about a Kazait? You didn't finish the entire bread. So Afilu Kol Shunami. So then even the entire thing is going to be the same halacha. So then the Gemara is going to come and give a few different answers.